Hey all, Mac here. Ultimate Lepic is one of the best, if not the best bosser in the first Descendant, just because of how much damage he can put out. And this damage is fairly bursty as well, which allows him to one-phase bosses and skip mechanics altogether. Now, even in group content, he's able to do some cheesy stuff, which allows him to kill a boss before they do their mechanic, but I'll get more into this later. The only downside I would say for this character is that the way you build him with high damage is fairly squishy, so you do have to pay attention to how you're playing, but that just makes it more fun in my opinion. Now, how I've built Lepic currently, I still believe there is room for improvement. 2 more crystallization catalysts could boost his damage even more, or boost his survivability a little bit, or some quality of life elements. Also, external components as well as a reactor could be improved. I just didn't really have the time to farm this anymore, and I wanted to move on to other projects. Nevertheless, he's in a spot where I can use him to just farm Colossi very quickly, and this was the entire intention from the start. Alright guys, let's take a look at the setup that I have going currently. Now, Lepic is a full-blown glass cannon when I built him this way, and he is only rocking 7.4k defense, 2.7k life, with a 1.2k shield buffer. You want a decent mana pool on him because of how his ulti works, and I will get into this later. Now, if we look at how his skill is scaling, I have almost 51% skill crit rate on him, along with 4.3 times crit damage, which this ends up being a big part of how you scale his damage, and you can sort of scale this through mostly mods, but then also Reactor, etc., etc. There's going to be a decent bit of skill duration scaling, as well as general power boosting. Alright, so for this module setup, I spent a total of 6 crystallization catalysts, and I do highly recommend that you actually spec these catalysts before you put it into this long distance maneuvering. I just want it to be generally flexible in case I do change things. But nevertheless, we're going to be running Firearm Master. The important line on this mod is changing weapon increases skill power. So when we change our weapon to our unique weapon using our 4, this counts as switching weapon and gives us a massive boost of skill power. One other mod that gives us an insane amount of skill power, especially when we're able to put the boss in the groggy state, is Dangerous Ambush, and this gives us a total of around 75% skill power, which is massive. MP Accelerant's a really strong mod for Lepic because it gives him 2 stats that he really wants, Duration and MP. Fire Specialist or Tech Specialist are both usable mods. These mods just boost his skill power. His 4, please note, is a fire tech skill. So for Reactor's sake and for mod's sake, take note of that. Emergency Measures and Front Lines is the crit rate, crit damage for skills, and this combination is very strong. Enlightenment gives us more max MP. This slot is kind of flexible. You can play Agony, you can play a couple of other mods. You ideally actually want to change this to a different crystallization sort of catalyst symbol, but I hadn't gotten around to that. Skill Concentration for skill crit damage, as well as Skill Insight for skill crit rate. We want more duration for his ulti, so we're taking Skill Extension. And Maximize Power. This mod is a little bit of a toss-up. So it does give us a lot of skill power, the highest modifier out of all of the mods. However, it also gives us a 50% cooldown increase, which takes us to a 2-minute cooldown for his ulti. This is not really playable if you want to use your ulti essentially after an immunity phase, and so in publics, you can basically jump off the ledge and take a stock out of your overall lives. However, it does let you use your ulti again quickly, and this is how you one-phase bosses. For instance, for Obstructor, if you're able to pop ulti at the start and nuke the boss down past around like 75% true life, and someone's able to break a part off, while they're shooting the weak points, you can jump off, die, and come back with your ulti up, and they can break the weak point, put the boss in groggy, and you can finish it off with your ulti. This is very cheesy, and it might require more coordination than pugs are usually able to do, and so there is a different build for Lepic as well. Alright, so the setup that I would take in most public matching Colossi, so Obstructor, maybe Frostwalker, but definitely the Magma Fortress, is this right here. This is a little bit more balanced, as it gives us around 122% HP from Battle Stamina. You can even swap out some other slots for defense. For instance, if you modded this with a different slot affinity, that would be a good choice. I would still keep all the crit and damage scaling, as Lepic's entire goal in Publix is to do as much damage as quickly as possible, just to make the fight a bit shorter. And if he's able to time this with people breaking the weak points and putting the boss in groggy, it's all the better. So if you don't want to cheese and you want to be able to survive more than one hit, this is the build to go. MP Collector is kind of up in the air. If you have enough MP recovery in combat or out of combat, this is unnecessary. However, it's still good to have. What we're mainly removing with this build is Maximize Power, because this just puts the skill cooldown on a way too high of a CD. With this setup, I was usually able to use my ulti after the boss came out of its immunity phase, but the downside is, obviously, you have less damage overall, so you aren't able to cheese it. Alright, so as far as weapons go, I've seen a lot of people run the Secret Garden, and we can actually take a look at this weapon really quick. So, the Secret Garden has a special effect called Pest Control, and Pest Control says that it gives us 5% skill power, stacking up to 3 times. The problem with this is that whenever you use your ulti, the Pest Control stacks actually fall off, so there's not really a point to running this gun over any other gun. In fact, it's probably better to run a gun like the Python. Now, the reason why we would want to run a gun like the Python is because of the fire rate. This is the highest fire rate ultimate weapon, and this actually scales the fire rate of our ulti. And this means that using a purple SMG, the one that has 999 fire rate, is an option as a budget setup. However, losing 20% skill power to do so is not really worth it, in my opinion. Instead, I'm using the Thunder Cage because I don't have a Python yet, and also I found a better reactor for the Thunder Cage. Moreover, I'm also building my Thunder Cage to be better, and in Publix, I can still do damage to the boss without my ulti by using the Thunder Cage. Okay, so the only 2 mods that I'm going to make a note of are Fire Rate Up. Because Fire Rate affects our ulti, we want Fire Rate. Plain and simple. Sharp Precision Shot actually takes away 20% fire rate, however, we can get up to 10 stacks, which increases our fire rate by 40%, giving us a net gain of 20% fire rate. This means that our ulti takes a little bit of time to ramp up in speed and shots. However, this also gives us more overall ulti hits over the duration. And since we have a limited duration and a limited mana pool, this is a good mod to pump out a little bit extra during our ulti. As far as the reactor goes, you want a ultimate reactor with your corresponding weapon, either a Thunder Cage or a Python, in my opinion. However, you can also use a purple one for 140% skill power instead of 160, and use the Blood Bloomer, I believe it is called. It is the highest fire rate purple SMG. Regardless, you want fire and tech, as those are the tags for our ulti. And as far as substats go, you have a couple options. I think skill crit rate is undervalued from what I've seen from other people. While this is a multiplicative scaling to your base crit, I still think it's worthwhile to have some, as it gives you more consistency in your damage, so you're not having to fish for crits and pray that you crit. Crit damage is a very strong mod. I highly recommend you have this mod, regardless of what your other stat is, as scaling more overall crit damage is going to help you just one-shot bosses. There is one additional stat that I think is really worth going for, and that's additional skill attack when fighting Colossi. This might be over-tuned, I'm not too sure, but from what I've seen of other Lepics, this stat seems to give them a lot of extra damage. I haven't been able to find one. I've been farming a reactor for a little too long, and I'm frankly sick of it, so I'm going to just settle with what I have. Other options are skill duration. This may open up your build to maybe not have to run more duration in your mods. You can also run skill cost reduction, which can help you with mana management. This overall has less value. Or you can run tech and fire skill power boost. These are just going to boost your overall flat damage, and it might actually outperform crit if you don't have enough of it through other parts of your build. Alright, so the external component set that we're going to be running is the Slayer set. Now, this is mainly for the 4-set bonus, meaning you want one of each piece, and it's for the 26% skill power. It also ups the cost by 15%, but we work around this by balancing out our mana as well as our duration. Alright, for the auxiliary power, we mainly want to look for HP and MP recovery out of combat. The second line allows us to regenerate our mana at the start after we use some of our abilities, and just helps us get more oomph out of our ulti. Additionally, if we're in a multiplayer Colossi, getting out of the boss range and sort of being able to just run around and hide or take cover, we can regenerate our mana so we don't have to really worry about that, and we have full resources for another ulti burst. For the sensor, we mainly just want max mana in this. Mana recovery in combat's nice to have, but the max mana is pretty crucial to have enough uses of our ulti. As far as the memory goes, MP recovery modifier is nice. Getting defense on this is even better, but it's basically whatever you can get on here. It's not too much of an issue if you don't roll anything useful on this. Finally, the processor. I think one of the better mods could be resistances, but at the same time, having some extra shield and just overall increasing your EHP on such a low life pool build is not too bad, so I took max shield. So Lepic's main burst combo is extremely simple. You want to press your 2 or your C. This gives us a 20% skill power boost, followed by our 4, and we roll. And the rolling basically cancels the 4 animation. If you actually would like to see it, here it is. This is the charge up animation for your ulti. It's way too long. It's pointless to just sit there and let it charge up. So instead, you can cancel it by pressing 4 and then immediately rolling after it, and you'll be in your ready to shoot state right away. And when you're shooting your ulti, be sure to hold down left click to make sure you don't have these stacks of precision shot fall off. Beyond that, the ulti does more damage on hit, but the pulsing AoE is nothing to scoff at, especially if you get a bunch stacked together. However, the initial hit is more important. You probably saw in some of my clips that I did miss shots, but Lepic has so much damage that even if you miss a couple shots, sometimes it's totally fine and you'll still one-shot the bosses. Okay, so one of the important things about this build is balancing your mana and your ulti duration. You'll notice on my build that I have a little bit more mana than is necessary, but this is mainly due to the fact that I did get a max MP external component, which is really important, but also the fact that I am running a Enlightenment mod in a place where you don't really need it. And there's not really a better option for me there, so it is what it is. But you can see, so let's pop our full combo and start shooting. I'm going to be holding down left click the entire time and basically draining my mana as quickly as possible while also letting my ulti timer go. And you can see we're still left with a little bit of mana, but our duration has run out. Meaning if you're able to get a little bit more duration on this build somewhere with my setup and maybe balance out the mana to be just a slight bit lower, you might get more optimal damage with your ulti. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this build guide. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope it was helpful and maybe inspired you to pick up Ultimate Lepic. I have a farming guide on my channel that I uploaded recently, so do go check that out if you do decide to farm for him and build him. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I will get around to them as soon as I can. Be sure to subscribe if you are looking for more First Descendant content. I'm going to be uploading a couple more build guides and maybe some experimentation stuff before Path of Exile launches. And when that launches, that's going to be my main focus. But yeah, until next time, ciao.